back in the studio ready to start a new painting. Going to try to do this winter scene here. Going to try to make sure to get these really bright oranges and purples and blues, all those colors in there. Not going to try to make it exactly like the photo, but we'll see what we get. Let's get started on it. Okay, on the palette for this one, starting out, we've got Ultramarine blue, Phthalo blue, burnt umber. This is Cadmium yellow light, and Quinacridone magenta, and some white gesso. I think I'll be able to get all of these bright colors with just these few. Starting with that sky, and for that I think I'm going to start with about a 50-50 mixture of the Ultramarine blue and Phthalo blue. That gives me a really bright, sky blue color. I can then start lightening that with my gesso. And I think that's going to be pretty close to the way this sky is. It's maybe a little more intense. I got a little too much white in it already. Pretty intense. Yeah, that's pretty close. That phthalo is really strong. The phthalo blue, really powerful. I'm going to start with that. All right, that's pretty bright, but I like it. Block in the top of this really quickly. Now that, as it comes down, gets a lot lighter. I'm just going to do the very top with that light, with that full blue, and then just pick up some gesso, some straight gesso on my dirty brush. Come in below it, and just kind of blend that up, wet and wet. Just like that. It doesn't need to be too perfect just yet. I'll put a couple coats of this on here. The first thing I like to do is just coat the canvas. All right, coming down, I'm going to get all of that paint out of my brush as much as I can, and then come back with some gesso in it. It's still got a little bit of that blue in it because I dirtied it up, but it's a lot lighter down here. Kind of blend that in, and we'll let it intensify a little bit as it comes down. Put a little bit of the blue back in there. A lot of that snow at the bottom shows through with this blue. And that kind of sets the tone for everything. All right, gonna dry that and put another coat. Okay, second coat. I'm going to try to intensify that top color just a little. I noticed after it dried, it got a little pale on me. I really want it to be pretty intense up there. Same kind of thing though. I'm going to add a little gesso as I come down and blend it. Got some clouds up here, so I don't mind that that's not perfectly smooth. I kind of like it. It gives me a little something to work with. At the bottom, it's got more blue. Yeah, didn't make enough paint. Maybe get a little bit more. And then in the middle is where it really lightens up. Some straight gesso in that. I always like to do 2 coats on the first layer, first coat, because it lets me get my color right. By putting 2 coats, you can kind of, the paint beneath shows through a little bit, so it helps you get your color tuned in, but also gives you a good surface to paint on. All right, I got some brush strokes at the top, but I'm not going to worry too much, like I said, about that. I'm trying to feather those out just a little. And then we'll start putting some of those clouds in here. All right, I'm going to hit that with a blow dryer real quick. All right, I know my horizon sits about here. And, I've got kind of clouds, pretty white up to the first inch or so. And then they start kind of feathering off. Like I said, I don't care that I match the painting exactly. I'm just going to do what I think looks good. I'm going to start with some gesso right here in the middle, and this is just kind of a soft round brush. Add some paint here across the canvas. A lot of this is going to be covered up with that first mountain range. I'm just going to kind of put some paint on the canvas, clean the brush, dry all that water out as much as I can, and then just kind of start pushing that paint around. Just kind of small circles, kind of scrubbing it in. You gotta kind of work quick before this paint starts to dry. But I want to just kind of scrub it out until it disappears in every direction. Just that will give you some good texture. You'll see that underneath blue showing up. That gives it some depth. Makes it look like you spent time trying to paint clouds. It's really kind of rubbing that paint around, making it go away. And kind of work it till it starts to dry. I'm going to do another little section of that above here. Each time I put a little paint on, I'm making sure to keep it horizontal, and I don't want to stop. I want to go off the edge of the canvas, both directions. And I don't want to do too much at one time because it'll start drying. Clean the brush, dry the brush. Just rub it off on here just to dry it. And then I'm just letting the tip of the brush do the work. Just kind of pushing it around. Just like that. Every direction. Already starting to get dry on me a little bit over here. Get a little bit of water. Let's see. Dampen that brush just a little. At this point, if you put water on it, it will loosen it back up because it's not completely dry. So I can do that and then dry the brush. Come back and pick more of it up. Now I know that some of this, I know all of this really is going to be covered up, so I'm not too worried about that. Got a couple spots here that are looking a little weird. Got to work those a little bit more. Hardest part about clouds is that they're so random. They could be anything. But if you make them look, weird, you may look up in the sky and say, hey, it looks like a turtle. But if you paint a cloud that looks like a turtle, you're a weirdo. So you kind of have to go with what it gives you. Try not to let it look too weird. All right, I'm going to come back with a little bit smaller brush. A little flat brush, and this is again a soft bristle. And some of these up in here, a little smaller clouds that kind of have a shape to them. But again, I'm just going to put some paint on the canvas. Clean the brush, dry the brush, and come move that paint around. These kind of have like a little bit of a pattern to it, so I'm kind of going to keep my brush going in that direction. Not too much, just try not to get it, like I said, not to look weird. Not a painting about a sky. It's got a lot more going for it than that. Just have to make it look okay. A little bit of water because I can tell that's starting to dry up already. I'm not getting more paint, I'm just dampening the brush a little bit so it loosens up this paint a little more. A little bit more of that on this side. Got a few that are... I can put some paint on the brush and then kind of tap it on the dry paper towel to sort of dry the paint. You know, the paint's on the brush, but it's sort of dry. Then I can come back in and kind of roughly sketch in some of these shapes. Don't want to get too carried away with it. I think that's probably good enough. I'm going to get a little bit more of that dry brush white in the middle here and kind of intensify some of this. Yeah, that helped. Yeah, good enough. Just scrub something in. You know, clouds, it doesn't have to be too perfect. There's a few way down at the horizon right above where the mountains are that kind of look like they're straighter lines, maybe far away. Kind of indicate a few of them here and there. That gives us a little depth, because as the clouds get further away, they'll look more horizontal like this. I don't know how much of this we'll see above these mountains, but let's put some of it in anyway. There's a little streak right over here. Straight streak. Okay, I don't want to spend too much time on that. The last thing with these clouds is there's a tint, and this is dry. As I'm going, it's pretty dry. There's a little hue of yellow to it because this sky is so pretty, and that colors are so bright. So I'm going to take my gesso and put the tiniest amount of yellow in it. And just kind of scrub over some of this. Yeah, not much. A little bit of yellow. You gotta be careful when you're putting yellow in your clouds, not to let it have too much blue behind it. Yellow and blue makes green. You don't want green clouds, ever. Hardly ever do you want green clouds. Unless you're painting a tornado. So I'm keeping that mostly on the white. I don't want it too much, just a little yellow glow to it. I think that's going to be it for the sky. Let's move on to these purple mountains. Alright, I think I'll be able to make this purple using that same blue, which is a 50-50 mixture of the Ultramarine blue and Phthalo blue, and adding a little bit of my Magenta, maybe a lot of Magenta, a little bit more than initially thought, and then Gesso. That's going to give me a purple. That's a little too blue, so I'm going to put some more Magenta. That's pretty close to that purple already. Now I'm going to add a little Gesso in it as I go in places, but I think that's the base color for it. Okay, and these kind of start right over here. They're very far off in the distance, which is why they look purple. And not a whole lot of detail to them. Mainly just there for the color. And just a lot of horizontal. There's not really any hard lines, so I'm going to kind of treat those almost like I did the clouds. I'm going to put some paint on, go back, clean the brush, dry the brush, and kind of feather out that top edge a little. I stopped a little short of where I wanted to come, height-wise, because I knew I was going to be kind of pushing some of that paint up, but I really want the top edge to sort of disappear. Don't want a hard edge at the top. Now I'm going to go back with some gesso in that. Lay some of that in between here. Good bit of that. And again, the dry brush. This blending is very dry. I think the big mistake a lot of people make trying to paint with acrylics is you try to treat it like oil, and oil paint blends really smoothly. It's real buttery, and it smoothly blends together, and you can take your time and get a smooth blend with it because it takes a week to dry. But with the acrylics, it dries on you so fast, you don't have time for that. You gotta go with what, you gotta blend it now. You gotta get it blended and get it done because it's drying, constantly drying. So the way to do that sometimes is to just let it dry. Use the drying process to your advantage and let it dry while it's drying. You're going to push the paint around and smooth it. All I'm really thinking about here is getting this to look like it's just something far away, really faded, soft edge lines, and a little variation of color. Little dark, little light. And that is almost dry already to the touch. There's a couple spots in here where it's a little more dark, a little more intense. Kind of through one part of it. Some of this will be covered. Part right in here has a little more, a little lighter, a little more blue. Each step I'm just putting a little paint on, then cleaning the brush and kind of pushing that paint around. Like that. I think that works pretty good. Let me get a little bit more blue. Get a little bit more intense purple there. It's got a little more blue shade to it. There's a spot kind of towards the middle. Right in here. That's a little too blue still. Maybe like that. Yeah, that's more purple. Yeah, before that dries, you can smooth it out just a little. Don't want it to disappear, just to smooth out. Get it to show up like I want it to. Yeah. Just trying to sneak up on it just a little bit. Don't want to overdo it each step of the way, just a little. And I like that that's a little dark right there in the middle. I think that works. There's a little section now as it comes down here. I'm going to add just a touch of gesso and see if I can get a little bit more like pink peach color to transition from that. A little more gesso, a little more magenta. See if I can get it a little more pink to be kind of in here. Yeah, it's a little pinker. And then from that pink, if I add a little yellow, gotta be careful doing that too, because yellow and purple are opposite colors, so that'll make a gray, a neutral color. But it does get a little bit of peach tint here. That doesn't really look peach right there, but I'm gonna get a little more red, and I think it will. Just slight variation of color as it comes forward. And it's got a lot of layers, so there's a lot more to go. Yeah, just an indication of that, where it's starting to transition a little bit orange. You can't really think about this as mountains. It's got, you know, it makes sense. It doesn't make sense yet as mountains. It just needs to be colors right now. Now for this orange on the other side, I'm going to start with some of this light yellow. I'm going to show you what I'm trying to get here. This really bright orange at the top. It's going to be a lot of yellow. So take a little bit of magenta. And it does not take much of that magenta. And that color is pretty close. If I look here, that's pretty spot on for that color. However, when I paint this on my canvas where I have blue below it, this blue is going to change this color dramatically. So before I even use this paint that I just made, let's go back up to the canvas. I'll show you a trick. So before I get into the yellow, I'm gonna put these mountains in here in white, just straight gesso. I'm just gonna draw them in. They have a pretty clearly defined top edge. They come down through here with that really bright. Actually, I think they're a little higher up. Let's go up just a little with them. Yeah, I'm not trying to match exactly. I'm just trying to go with what my painting needs. Don't have to paint the picture exactly. And it looks really strange to have a white mountain over here. But this is just an underpainting. I'm going to paint it yellow here in a minute. Now, as it comes down here, I just want to get my brush strokes to at least have some of the shape of this mountain in it. It's kind of the shadows that come down. Kind of looks like the shape of how the mountains would look. You know, so if any of this does show through, it follows the contour of the land, basically. Okay, that, even though it's still purple showing through there, that white coat is going to help dramatically. I'm going to dry that real quick and we'll put some orange on it. Okay, I don't like how my purple's diving downward into that, so I'm going to go ahead and try to fix that first. Just try to get a little bit more of a straight edge, more horizontal anyway, for that top edge. Yep, that's better. And then that white kind of cuts across it this way. Yeah, I like that a little better. Maybe not quite so steep. Yeah, about like that. Now the brightest, most intense yellows, oranges are right up at the top right here. So in order to get that, I'm going to let that be the widest part of it. Yeah, just like that. Okay, that's good and dry. Let's come over here with some of this yellow. Go right up to the edge of it. Looks a little cartoonish right now, but that's okay. It's the first layer. We got a lot of texture to put on. Layers of color. Yeah, try to keep that top edge pretty clean. That's some of the bottom. A lot of the bottom is going to be covered up. But that yellow would not be that bright if we put it straight on blue. See how that looks green? You put it on top of the blue. I can paint down there because all that's going to be covered up. But had to put that white underneath it to make it have the right color. Okay. Okay. Now I'm going to play with that color a little bit. That yellow. After I get it good and dry, I'm going to play with that and add some more red to it, make it a little more orange, maybe a little brown, get some of those orange colors so I can put some detail on here. But I'm going to dry it first. Okay, now that that's dry, I noticed a little bit of my purple over here needs a little bit more pink to it. So I got a really thin, washy, watery pink. It's just magenta with gesso and a lot of water. I'm just going to kind of go over some of this, kind of tint it a little bit, and it's okay because that's barely showing up. And when it dries, it'll show up even less. But it's okay then to come over this yellow with it because that gives it a little bit of an orange tint. Not doing a whole lot to the yellow, but I'm just going to give it a little more pink in here. That mountain. That's pretty good. Maybe I'll take a little bit of it off. Yeah, just enough. I think that looks good. Now I'm going to come back with some of that same orange. I want to add a good bit of magenta to it. Just give myself a more intense. I don't know if this brush is going to be good enough for me or what, but I can kind of flay it out a little to see what it does. Yeah, that'll give me something. Yeah, I have to get a different brush for some texture here. That color's working though. You got a million little trees on the side of this mountain. That's what I'm trying to get here. Just kind of tapping. This brush is kind of flayed out. It works pretty good. But as I go up, I think I'm going to want to switch to a fan brush. And this just kind of gets gradually darker as it goes down. Let me switch out brushes real quick. I'm going to try this fan brush. It's kind of big. Maybe just use the tip of it. It's not giving me a lot of paint. Yeah, that's better. Looks like these trees are laying in rows in here, kind of following the mountain down. That brush is a little too big. Let me find one that's smaller. Well, let's try this one. Let's try this little one. because some of this right up here is pretty small. It's just following that contour of that mountain down. It doesn't have to be perfect on every layer. I mean, if you don't like that layer of texture, just dry it, put another layer on there or something else. Keep working it, because eventually it'll start looking better. Sometimes it takes a lot of layers before you really start seeing something you like. All right, coming down further, add a little brown, a little burnt umber to that. Yeah, I think a lot of this down in here has that umber color to it. A little bit too much brown. Let's get back and soften that up. At some point down here it gets really dark, almost black. But I'm just kind of easing up on that, kind of sneaking up on it. Need to start getting some separation between these hills too. Let's get back to a little more orange color. It's got a good bit of that brown still in it. Just kind of want to make that mountain, or that little hill, kind of push that other one back a little. There we go. You can always use your finger too for some of this. The canvas texture will give you a lot sometimes. It's pretty bright. I'm going to dry that so I can do some more layers to it. Okay, I think I'm going to have to make it a little more yellow, especially at the top. Got some lighter yellow, and this is again a different brush. I can't find a brush that I really like, but this one's more just a thin layer on top of everything. A lot of that to show through. Mainly this is about honing in on that color. Got a little too red up in here. With this thin paint like this, I can just kind of paint over what's there, and it'll kind of color the whole thing. Without losing my textures. Yeah, that looks better already. But just the tiniest amount of gesso in that yellow. Yellow is one of the hardest colors, in my opinion, with acrylics to get to show up on top of anything. You know, it's very transparent. But if you add a little, and this is true with any color, if you add a little bit of gesso to it, not enough to lighten it really, just add a little gesso. That gesso has a different texture. It's a different binder in it, so it's kind of a chalky consistency, and it will cover sometimes when regular acrylic paint will not. That's some of the reason why I use gesso and not just white paint, because it does that. It gives you the opportunity to add in add into any color to make it a little more solid, if it makes any sense. So it shows up just a little brighter. Trying to define the edges of these just a little more. Okay, that looks weird. I gotta admit, that looks pretty weird so far, but I think it's supposed to. While I got this little fan brush, let me get back into some of that pink and see if I can get some more of that in here. There's definitely some pink happening in here. Oh yeah, I like that. Give me some more defined texture in there. And there's some pink down in here too that's kind of, I guess, like trees and things way down in the bottom where these two come together. But some of that's covered. I think I'm just gonna leave it like that. Let's see. Next is the darker parts. Let's go there next. Okay, for this next color, I made some black, basically, out of burnt umber and ultramarine blue, and it's about a 50-50 of those two colors. And then I added in a little bit of that magenta to give me it's really a dark, I'm gonna put a little more magenta. It's literally a dark purple. That's what I'm trying to come up with. I think this is it. So there's an area, there's another row here of closer stuff. I'll put some more magenta in that because it's not showing up as purple, it's showing up as black. Yeah, that's pretty good. Let's see. Yeah, okay. So there's another peak right in here, another little top edge to this layered mountain range. Not sure where this is. Not around here. I'm in Alabama. We don't have snow or pretty snow-covered mountains here. We have some mountains, but they're not like this. So this dark one kind of goes in behind the bright orange mountain over here. Now all of this is really far away, and when we put the trees and things in the foreground, a lot of this will kind of disappear. Okay, that's pretty solid. We get a little darker with it, and it's pretty dry already. Get a little darker and come to the very top of it. Let's get a pretty clear, hard line at the top. Yeah. There we go. There we go. And then on the other side, and this is, it looks more like a shadow going across everything. I'll show you the picture here, what I'm looking at. Got some dark trees going across here, but they've got light tops. It's like the shadow goes across below them. So I think I'm going to put them in orange first, that dark orange, and then darken the bottoms of them. Well, I don't know. You really can't see the orange tops. Kind of debating here. Let's just put them in dark, in black. I'll get my fan brush, my little fan brush I was using earlier. It was working pretty good. For that color, again, I'm going to start with black, which is burnt umber, ultramarine blue, 50-50 blend. And then for that, I think I'm going to add in just a little bit of yellow. If I put too much, it'll turn green. That's pretty good. Let's see what that looks like up here. You may take a couple coats of this because it is pretty dark. And it comes to a hard line right where the snow starts. Kind of right in here. Kind of domes up. I'll clean that line up when I put the snow in. Seeing that now, it's a little bit too brown. Let me put a little more blue in it. All right. Yeah. And it has a spot that it kind of comes in up here. Kind of goes through there. And then intensifies back here. Comes out the other side, and it's got some lighter trees in front of it. Just trying to get it blocked in first. Yeah, kind of right through there. Now the top edge of it, though, is kind of a tree line. Go in here and see if I can make that look that way. Yeah, that's working. Now right through the middle there's going to be some brighter trees that come up, so I'm not really worried about that too much. And that first layer is splotchy looking, that's okay. We'll put another layer on that. Before I do though, there are some tree trunks kind of peeking through there. Take my palette knife, a little plastic knife here, and kind of scratch some tree trunks in there. It's cheating. Just a little bit. I'll go ahead and put some on this side too. It's gonna have some. That works. All right, I'm gonna dry that real quick. Okay, now I'm back in that orange, the darker orange that I had for the trees. I'm trying to put some individual closer trees in here. And for that, I got my dagger brush. This is one that's kind of old, and the ends are the end is kind of chewed up on it, but it does good for treetops. Sometimes these old beat up brushes are the best ones. I need to get that to be pretty dark. So it'll show up. Yeah, it shows up on top of this dark okay. And on that lighter color, it does all right, but it's not perfect, but it's going to get some shadowing. These are just some closer trees, but the tops of them are being hit by this bright, really bright sun. And some of those go even across into here. Yeah, there's even a few showing up over here. That purple with this really bright orange in front of it is really what makes this photo look so good and so odd. Those colors are complementary colors. They're on the opposite side of the color wheel. They don't, when you put them next to each other, it changes how they look. And so that's the exact same color here on this yellow, but when you put it on this black, that dark purple, it changes the color of it completely. This is going to take a few layers. I'm going to dry that real quick, and then I'll put a shadow side on them, and then we'll put highlights on them. Okay, back to the dark shadow color that we were using below them. And I'm going to the left side of each of these, just kind of shadowing that left. Our sunshine is from the top right on this photo. So their shadows are going to be on the left and on the bottom. Okay. These over here are less defined, but they're still going to have some shadowing. Okay. Clean that up just a hair. Okay. Dry that, and then we'll do the highlights. For the highlight, I added a little bit of yellow and a little bit of gesso, just the tiniest amount of gesso to that. Just going to come on the top right side this time. They're not very distinguishable back here, but that's okay. I want to give the indication that that sun is on the right, shining across the tops of these trees. Just like that. I think I'm going to even put a little more over here where it's real dark. Really want it to stand out. So I think I'm going to go clean that brush. I'll dry this real quick, and then I'll straight yellow the tiniest amount of gesso. Let me dry it real quick. Okay, yeah, I don't want to do too much of this. Just a little bit on these few tops over here, mostly. Very peak of these trees that are kind of catching most of the sunlight. This is all going to be behind the tall trees they're going to put in, but they're going to show through. It's all going to show through a little bit. That intense sunlight coming across there is what I'm trying to catch. Get a little bit on these, but only at the very top. Good enough. Feather out the bottom. All right. All right, I think I'm ready to move forward. All right, back in my original blue that we started with. Kind of clean this edge up a little bit and start working on this snow. I'm going to pull that in front of that just a little, clean that edge up. Very blue, I know, but snow is hardly ever white in a painting or in nature. If you pick it up and put it in the light, it's white, but when you're looking at it off in the distance, hardly ever white. I'm going to go with this blue and go a little bit shades lighter here and there. This is just a little more gesso in it. Now with this, I'm just trying to kind of give the shape of the land. Just going to try to indicate some of that. There's a lot of highlight that's going to go in here on top of this, but for now, just trying to shape this land a little bit. It kind of has a little bit of a dome here in the middle. Don't want too much of that gesso coming through. All this over here is going to be covered up. Get it back, clean the brush out, get some water. Start pushing this around a little bit. I want some of these textures with this intensity where it gets lighter, darker, you know, showing through. Use water and kind of push that around. Now there is some, let's see what the best way to do this is going to be. There's some darker blue shadow spots, I guess, that kind of fall across here. And using a fan brush works pretty good for this. This is going to do some of the work for me. Kind of scrub this fan brush side to side, and it's going to give me a lot of little, you know, little textures on the ground. I got to get my paint to the right consistency. It's not quite wet enough. Yeah, like that. That gives you a lot of little detailed stuff when you really didn't do a lot of detail. And by keeping the brush horizontal like this, all those shapes will kind of make the contour of the land for you. Just that quick. I got a lot of little detail in there. As it goes up, there are some lighter spots of the same kind of stuff, kind of right there, that are just spots where light's hitting the snow. A bit right in there. Okay. And not a whole lot back in there. All right. I think that's probably pretty good for now. There's going to be a lot more in the foreground, but I'm going to dry that real quick. Okay. There's a little bit, some darker trees that are here that are going to be a little more forward, but before I get to those, this yellow on these trees is a little too yellow. I'm going to go ahead and tint it back to an orange, and this is just a thin layer of that that orange. We're just going to kind of color. Just kind of coloring over this and leaving some of that yellow showing on the edge. Kind of lets it glow a little bit. That's okay. I like that. This thin orange layer, we'll just kind of tint it back to orange because it is more of an orange than it is a yellow. The sun's coming across there and lighting everything up. I'll do the same on these over here. Yeah, that's a lot better. Didn't really want to paint my snow orange. Okay. I like the way that's working. It's making it kind of glow. Okay. That's pretty good for that. I'm going to hit that with a dryer real quick. All right, moving closer up to the next level, there are some dark trees that are kind of right in here. Let's see, I'm going to start one off right there. Okay. There's one there. There's one kind of here. There's one, a couple in here. So what I'm going to do with those, these are evergreen trees with what I would call Christmas trees, almost. Kind of put this first one's a little bit wide, a little bit solid. Just using the corner of this fan brush, kind of going back and forth, letting those edges kind of get wild. And as I go down, I can flatten it out. I did cover up a lot of that one tree right there, which is okay, because it shows through just enough. So that good and flat. This one has a little less leaves on it, a little taller and skinnier. Yeah, something like that. Same with all of these back here. I'm just going to kind of throw them in there. Try not to stop at the edge of the canvas. A few more kind of in here. All right. It kind of disappears down to here. Now there's a few little things down here. They're not as close as that, but there's a few darker. And just something that may be a little closer back here, but all that's in shadow, which is why it's so dark. There's the light's casting across there, but the shadow is below it. So it's pretty dark shadow through here. Okay. All right, I think that's pretty good. Some of this will show through, so I'm gonna make sure it's good and dark right there. And once again, I'll do some little, not showing up as good this time, but some little tree trunks in there. Make sure to keep my snow clean there, although a lot of this is covered up. Some of it shows through. Especially right there in the middle, that shows through pretty good, so I'm going to make sure to keep that pretty clean here. That side's covered up. All right, that's it for that part. Next, the big trees in the foreground, they kind of, there's a patch of solid, almost solid brush that kind of comes through here, all the way out to about here. And what it is, it's just low trees at the base of these bigger trees. Some of them even go up into here. And they got a little snow on them, so I'm just going to give them some texture. I'm not really trying to paint every tree. Try to indicate this brush down here. I don't want to do too much of it. There's a lot more in the photo, but there's, I think it'll look better with less. This is maybe grass, maybe trees, maybe, you know, who knows what right here. It's just dark in that snow. And it comes down to a pretty good hard line right here. Yeah, about like that. It doesn't have to be clearly defined what is what. It's main thing here is that it's dark. It's contrast against that snow, and we're going to put these tall, skinny trees are going to kind of land right in here in it. Even some stuff that kind of comes over here. Actually, a pretty clearly defined tree right here. All right, and that's got to be pretty solid. Another little row here in the foreground, even more forward than that. And like I said, it's got to be pretty solid. So I think I'm going to dry that and then come back and put some more in it, and then we'll put some snow in it. All right, more of the same. This is just that same black. Just making it more solid here at the bottom. Don't really have to go all the way to the top. Just want it to be pretty solid in the thickest part of it. Yeah, about like that. Okay, before I come any further forward, I'm going to put some of this far back in the snow. There's a little bit of a drop off, kind of a cliff almost right in here that kind of falls down here. Down into kind of a ravine. That snow. That may be. Let's see, I will come back with my flat brush, kind of smooth that out a little bit, and dry brush. Smooth some of that out. Pretty clean lines though, pretty intense right through there. Just kind of drops into shadow there. Yeah, I like that. It doesn't, it's a little bit blue. Probably should have a little more dark. Let's see if I get a little bit of that dark color that I had with it and mix it with it if it gets a little bit more gray. At least down in the pit here. I know I'm painting over some of my stuff here. That's okay. Very easy to put that back in there. When you notice something in the distance though, like this, that needs to be fixed, you just got to fix it, and then you can fix the foreground later. This is shadow right in here. Yeah, that color looks better too. Then I can go back to my black and I can make that a little more solid again. It's okay. It doesn't have to have detail. You know, this was just dark shadows underneath the bottom under the brush here. I'm going to dry that and then I'll put some snow on them. Okay, there's a little bit of snow on these trees in the foreground, but it's all in shadow. So it's going to be that blue. But that will let me kind of define, you know, a little bit more about what's what down here. A couple of kind of more distinct trees. Not a whole lot, just in spots. Yeah, I think that's working. The bottoms of here kind of have a little snow edge to them too. Okay. Trying to see if there's anything else before I start putting the big trees in. I think we're pretty much ready to get started with that. All right, I think I'm going to start with some of these smaller trees further back. I've got a little script liner brush. I'm just going to quickly pull some of these down. When you're doing this, you kind of pull with your elbow, try not to use your wrist too much. And if I wasn't trying to film this and, you know, have a camera between me and the canvas, I would probably pick the canvas up, hold it, you know, get a little more comfortable with a position that I could pull these, because they're pretty straight down trees, and you can use a, you know, something to brace your hand with, or even a ruler if you just want to. But you know what, they're trees, they're not you know, telephone poles. Just gonna try to get some in. Now this brush is a script liner, and it's a smaller one, but it's, yeah, there's long bristles. If you can see that, the long bristles hold a lot of paint, so you got to get it, kind of have a little water in it, so it can flow. You just kind of got to go quick. Maybe a few more of the skinny ones on the right. There's a few that are maybe kind of back in here. That good. I feel like if I can do this quicker, they'll look better. But then I don't have as much paint coming off the brush. Another good thing about painting with acrylic, it's dry, so I can lay my hand on there if I need to. Right now, take my little bit bigger liner brush. This one's longer bristles, it holds a little more paint. I'll put some of these bigger ones in back here. Now the tips of these I can make smaller with the other brush. It's not going to get real small with this brush. I can do it that way, it'll come up a little bit. But they're going to have, you know, leaves and stuff on them anyway. I need to be paying attention to where these come in at the bottom as well, because they don't all stop at the same place. Let that one go off the top. Got a little thick on me right there. I'm going to have to get it. Okay. A few bigger ones right in here that come down a little further. It's okay that they're a little shaky too. They don't have to be, not telephone poles. let's see, these actually come down a little further. To about right there. A little snowbank that kind of covers the front edge of those. I'll let a few of these come further down. It gives it a little depth. Let's start with those. I'll go back with my little fan brush. I can find what I did with it. There it is. This one's synthetic bristle. It's a little bit, it's pretty flat, pretty small. But some of this has a really small detail at the top. Want to make sure I got plenty of water in that paint. It's kind of like an ink consistency. Let's start with some of these small ones. Just use the very corner of that brush to start with. Start working it down. There's not a whole lot of leaves and things on this, limbs on this trees out here. Not too much. Just mostly at the top on this one. A little bit down here maybe. And kind of the same for these other little ones. You don't have to feel like you're making every limb touch, you know, a limb next to it, like it's all got to be connected there. You know, if you got a few that kind of float, it's just because you can't see the, it's so far away you can't see all the little connecting limbs. And that's perfectly okay. This down here is more this tree behind here that's got a little more prominence to it. Alright, these kind of right in here are a little thicker. I don't spend too much time on this. The quicker you do them, better they look. I don't want that one to stop all the way up to that mountain. I don't want it to kiss the top edge. I either want to go past it or before it. I think I'll start down here. Because if it stops right at it, it kind of kisses it. It kind of looks weird. And down here gets kind of thick. That's okay. Probably put a couple more layers down there later. Actually, while it's wet, it's a good time to kind of scratch some brush in there, some details. You can do that up the tree too. You can kind of put some, you know, it'll only look like detail. Look like you did it on purpose. Then you kind of come back and hide some of it. Yeah, that's working. And this paint is just black, basically. I made it, of course, out of the blue and the burnt umber. But it is, you know, my darkest shade so far. It's got a good dark value. These trees are in shadow. They have a little bit of snow on the trunks. We'll get to that in a minute. But for now, this one goes pretty high up. And it doesn't have a whole lot on the bottom. Further down, not much to this part. Again, I don't want that line to stop right at that edge of the mountain there, so I'm going to bring it up just a hair. All right. These have very little. There's a whole lot on these trees, really. They're kind of sparse. A few of them are more full. I like that there because it lets that sky show through pretty good. All those colors. Don't want to cover those up. Getting a weird effect with that brush there. Don't want to play right. And as I get over here to the edge, these are the least important trees. But I would go off the top a lot. It's not that they're less important, it's that they're not going to be the focus. If somebody looks at this painting from far away, they're not going to be drawn to this outside tree. They're going to be drawn, hopefully, to the bright colors, because that's what drew me to the photograph. Okay. While I'm in that dark, I'm going to solidify this bottom edge a little bit on this undergrowth. Just because it's got a lot of dark, shadowing at the bottom here. Kind of clean that up a little. Okay. Get a little bit more brush type stuff here. But there is snow in front of this, so I don't want to do too much. Let's see if I can get this, these bristles to open up for me here. Give me some texture on the ground. Put a lot of water and let the bristles open up, and that side to side motion can give me some good stuff. There's even some of that up here, a little bit. Kind of following the contour of the slope there. Yeah, just a little. Okay. Got one or two more in here that didn't get a whole lot. They don't need a whole lot either. Yeah. Okay. All right. While those trees are drying, I'm going to get back in this snow. In the foreground, this is back to my blue snow, this little bit lighter blue. And there's a little bit of a ridge that kind of comes across here. I'm going to use this fan brush and let those bristles give me some some good textured shadows in there and stuff. You don't have to try really hard on that. The brush does a lot for you. Let's see. And this, again, this paint has some water in it. It's not, straight. It's got a little, so when it dries, it'll be a little more transparent, a little more of that blue will show through it. So it looks like you got several values. As the paint dries, it gets thinner. So it makes it look like you're painting several different values, even though you got just, one paint color. Again, keeping this horizontal, keeping the bristles horizontal, because that's going to give me that flatness that I'm looking for, the lay of the land. A little bit of highlight in here. Like that. I think that's working pretty good. I'll come with some even lighter right up here. There's some really bright stuff up here happening. I don't want to go right up to my tree and stop. So we'll continue on the other side of it. Just a little. Don't get carried away with that. Just some water on the brush. Clean that tree off. Yep. Got to come back and put a little bit of highlight on those tree trunks. I'm gonna hit that with a blow dryer real quick though. And before I do, I think I'll put a little more of the black in this thick part here, just to make it a little more solid. Just kind of in this middle part here and along the bottom of the brush. That really dark value is important because of all the light stuff that's behind there. I'm going to make sure all these trees have a base to them too. You don't want them just stopping and floating. Okay. Now the tree trunks are going to have a little bit of snow on them. Again, it's the light blue, it's not white. And it really, the way it is, looks like in the photo that most of the snow is on this left side. I'm just going to kind of spot it in there just a little bit with this tiny brush and gently touch it with my finger and kind of spread it out. And let the canvas texture give me some detail with it. And the light on this painting is coming from the right, so the snow is on the left. I'm thinking that's because it's probably melted off on that side a little bit more. And I'm not going to do this on every tree trunk all the way down, just really where there's a need for it. Where, like here, where it needs to be a little more defined. Where I have a lot of contrast, some dark behind, where it'll show up really good. It doesn't take much of this. Okay. Let's come down and do a little bit on. And it's mostly, the bottom half, partly because that's where the contrast is down here, but it's also there's more limbs and leaves and things at the top that hide it. It's really fine detail. It is easier sometimes when you take the canvas, especially on a small canvas like this, and kind of hold it in your hand and get a good angle on it. So hopefully if you try this, yours will look better than mine. I'm going to leave it here on the easel so I can have the camera on it. Alright, little finger paint. Let's see. So it gives me a chance to kind of pull that out from in front of all that stuff behind there. Kind of define what's what. Now, while I'm in that snow color with my, this tiny brush, I think I will go ahead and do some little detail down here. Not a whole lot, just some areas where it's a little lighter. Actually, kind of right in here where this tree needs to be a little more. Just kind of looks like a cluster right now, which is okay. I don't need it to be clearly defined, but give it a little bit. Just kind of scribbling. I'll take my finger and kind of tap it out. Now, if I was using pure white, this would look weird. It would be too bright and it would be too much, but because I'm using the blue, the shadow snow color, I'm able to kind of put more on, and when it dries, it kind of disappears a little bit more. Looks more natural. Some of this too. I don't do a whole lot in these top trees. There's not a whole lot on them. If you're going to do a lot of detail, do it in the middle of the painting. Do it in the focal point. Not going to worry about doing a whole lot of little stuff over there on the side. And down here, there's couple of, brighter spots. Maybe some sticks that have kind of fallen and gotten covered in snow, and some things like that. Matter of fact, while I have that little brush, there's also some dark stuff down here that's kind of scattered in here. Just kind of focusing towards the middle. Maybe there's some sticks or limbs or something down there. There's a pretty good bit of brush at the bottom of this. I'm not going to try to paint it all. Get that to show up too good. There you go. If you get a few little fine lines in there, it really looks like you put a lot of detail in it when you didn't. While I'm in that little brush and that black, I can come in here too and kind of clean up some of my weird looking places on the tree, and especially in the middle, give it a little more small stuff, more detail. Maybe a couple of little limbs and things. At this point, in the painting, I'm not so much looking at the photo. I'm not really, it's what we call just kind of taking what it gives you. You got to look and see what's there, see what looks good and make it better, and see what's bad and fix it. And just kind of get what it'll give you. I like that really dark against that really bright yellow orange in here. come back with this dark. I put a little more brown in it too. Come back and clean these back here up just a little. And I knew when I put those in, they kind of got blurry on me. They're not in the foreground, so they don't need too much detail necessarily. But I do want to kind of give them a little bit more definition. Mostly because of the contrast. This dark on here makes that yellow look even brighter. And it's pretty dark towards the base of these trees. Yeah, that's working good. Focusing kind of on the left side of each cluster so that it, that lets the sun side be highlighted. Yeah. Mostly right in the middle. All right. See how that little bit of detail at the end can make it look like you put a lot of time and effort into everything when you really kind of throwing things on there to begin with. I might take my, that little brush and come back with some really much lighter, still blue, still not going pure white because I think that would be too much. Put some more gesso in and we get some of these spots where we need to highlight just a little more. Just a little. And again, middle of the canvas, middle of the focal point here. I don't want to get carried away. I don't know. I don't want to do too much. I think I'm going to call it quits right there. If you want to try painting this one, I'm going to put the photo in the description, a link to the photo so you can download it. Try it. This one's a lot of fun. It's different than anything I've ever done. I've never painted an orange-yellow mountain before. Well, now I have. It's not exactly like the photo, but I think it turned out okay. But I appreciate you watching, and if you don't mind, like and subscribe, and there'll be more videos coming soon. Thanks.